So it gets us back to this issue of buy American, hire American. And as you can imagine, it's going to make for some strange bedfellows between Democrats and Donald Trump. We're talking about President Trump's new executive order called the Buy American, Hire American. We're joined by Brad Bauman, who is the former executive director of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He's now a political strategist. Brad, good to have you back on the show.
It's great to be here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, I noticed the president back up in Wisconsin, which obviously helped him a lot during the election. And he's sort of playing to that labor crowd, I think, with this executive order.
He is, but the problem with this executive order is that it just really amounts to words. I think that, a lot of folks in the labor world, and let me tell you, many of my clients are actually in labor world. We have been doing Buy America provisions for a very long time. Buy America started in 1982 with Reagan and Democrats working together. In 2006, when Democrats took back Congress for the first time since 94, one of the first things they did was do a Buy America provision bill. So this is nothing new. What's different this time than those legislative issues in the past is this was just a press conference in words. There was no, direction in the executive order that explains to the departments how they are to buy American, where they're supposed to go. And, that's kind of duplicitous on the part of the president.
Well, I talked about this yesterday when I first heard about it. From a conservative point of view, I'm not sure it's good business, quite frankly, because it's going to end up raising the cost of purchases. When the government goes out to seek bids on projects, if there's some sort of a requirement that this or that portion of it has to be bought in America, it may very well raise prices. So I'm not crazy about the idea that by instituting a policy like this, you're going to increase those costs, but I would think that it would play well among those labor folks who are traditionally Democrats, because this is what they pushed for a long time. And when it comes to this issue of sort of restricting or changing these H-1B visas, that's also something I would think that the labor unions would be in support of.
Well, two things. Number one, I think that let me tell you something. You and I may very much disagree about the best way for government to spend its money, but at least you're intellectually honest. And that is something that I really appreciate. The truth is that it may not make business sense. I don't know. We need to take a look at the data and really figure that out. But what this clearly is Trump trying to have it both ways. On the H-1B visa thing, too, number one, none of the changes that he wants to make or that he says to the Department of Commerce that he wants them to look into making can even go into effect until 2018. That's the first thing. The second thing is that on H-1B visas, why didn't he do anything about H-2B visas, where, we're talking about less skilled workers, folks who, Trump has actually relied on to bring into the country, just at Mar-a-Lago and other Trump properties. I think that it's kind of ridiculous what he did yesterday in terms of saying words that should matter to folks, but then didn't do anything.
Yeah, I know that the Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a lot of these pro-business groups have long sort of fought against immigration reform because they like cheap labor, and that's kind of where they see the illegal immigration issue. The H-1B visa issue, I saw CBS criticizing Trump about that this morning because he has sort of used that before for several of his properties, not just Mar-a-Lago. But from a business perspective, it does make sense to use not only the cheaper product if you're competing against other people, but cheaper labor. But I think that you have to give him some credit now that he's on the other side of the ball and he's sort of in charge of being able to adapt. And he was playing by the rules before, but if the rules change and it benefits more Americans. I don't know, man. See, here's the problem I think that the left is going to have with Donald Trump is that he's sort of wrapping his arms around some things that the left has always supported, and now they're not so sure they like that very much.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would be the first person to stand in the streets cheering him on if I honestly thought that the changes that he was ascribing to and the things that he was trying to do were more than just words. But at this point, I see no evidence of that actually taking place. There's no policy here. There's nothing here that is actually going to tangibly change the ball game. All that we're seeing is words. I'm not going to applaud the guy for using good language. All we've seen out of Washington and Washington types for the past 20 years has been words. And this guy comes in and all of a sudden, like, his words match mine, so I'm supposed to give him credit? No, I thought we were trying to change things.
Yeah. See, Brad, you don't like him when he uses bad language, and you don't like him when he uses good language. He can't win.
Listen, I'll be the first to admit, I don't like the guy.
Brad, I appreciate your honesty. Brad Bauman with the political strategist, former partner at the Pastorum Group now. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. You see, that Brad's in an odd spot there because he kind of wants to agree with Donald Trump, but he can't. So that's kind of the quandary Trump is going to put not only the left in, but also some of us on the right who are not real big on, trade restrictions. So we'll talk more about that coming up. We're going to talk to Dave Ray from FAIR, from the Immigration Reform Group, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. They've got a take on these visas and what impact a policy like this has on the need for immigration reform in this country. It's coming up on The Mark Cox Show.